Alright, we're going to get into the meat of the presentation. Everyone ready? Yes? Good, good. Let's go. Business writing assignment. Here's some highlights. What we're going to be doing. Composing a cover letter and a resume for a job or internship for which you would like to be considered. Like Professor Holt said in her lecture, we can't do something that's fake. For instance, Dunder Mifflin. You know, we have to make it real. We have to choose a real employer. I'm going to harp on this next point a lot. 1 page. Nobody likes to read more than 1 page when it comes to cover letters and resumes. And also take this from me too. When I was in y'all's this class that year, I thought I had 1 page, and I would submit the assignment, and then I'd look on Blackboard, and there was 1 sentence that would make a 2nd page, and I got counted off for that. So what I would suggest doing is once y'all are done with a Word document or a Google Doc, I would export it into a PDF, and then just double check that it's not 2 pages, because we'll count off for that, even if it's a sentence, right? And then submit the Word doc, okay? For the resume, you're supposed to combine both good content with aesthetic design, but don't be too flashy. A lot of times in the industries we go to, the people who look at our resumes, personality-wise, they're a little bit more conservative. They like professionalism. They like formality. They don't like flashy things. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be creative. We just have to be very, very careful, okay? For the cover letter, highlight yourself narratively. I don't know if y'all have ever read something that's just ridiculously professional, but it's boring. All right, it's boring. So for a cover letter, we need to see a little bit who you are. There's a balance between all these things, professionalism and comfortability or casualness or formality, right? And I don't think that's a skill we all need to learn per se. I think all with our good judgment, you'll be able to find that balance. Just pay attention to it. That note up there, the sticky note. I did email y'all the requirements. Hope y'all kept it. If not, I'm sure we can find it on Blackboard, or I can email it to you again. Any questions? All right. Grading. I'm not going to go over this rubric. We have it. But I am going to tell you what specifically I'm looking for. That's clarity, tone, and research. This happens all the time. Clarity, tone, and research. Let's see. There we go. So clarity. What are you trying to convey? What are you trying to get across, right? So when I was learning this sort of stuff, when I started, I used to like long and drawn out sentences. I used to like a whole lot of semicolons, a lot of commas, a lot of parentheses. But then I had to learn that typically the simpler the sentence, the better, okay? So tone, that's a really important one too. In this class specifically, we are definitely going to be looking for something a little bit more professional, you know? But that doesn't mean we can't be ourselves. That goes back to the balance, all right? So the right tone. I'll give you an example, something like extreme. In your cover letter, at the very end, if you were to say something like, oh my gosh, I am so excited to work for you with 6 exclamation points, number one, it seems like you're yelling. Number two, you're a little bit too comfortable with somebody you want to work for, you know, with your future boss, hopefully. And that's an extreme example. I'm sure none of us are going to have to worry about that. All right, we're going to get into the elements of a resume. A lot of this makes sense. I think a lot of us have seen resumes before. Maybe we already have some, which is great. So name, living info, and contact info. Straightforward, straightforward. Include all collegiate level credits. So if you made dual credit in high school, it's a good idea. Now, a lot of times it depends on the person to whom you're sending it. All right, a lot of times it depends. For instance, when I was submitting my PhD applications, apparently I forgot to submit my dual credit from high school. And I got a whole lot of emails. Hey, we see you have more credits. What's going on here? You got to send them to us. It was stated in the requirements, right? It's a little awkward. You think that hurts my credibility a little bit? Sure, sure. So read the requirements and make sure you've gotten them all done. So the book talks about mentioning your GPA if it's high. So if I'm not mistaken, if I remember right, it says 3.4 or higher. Everything else is debatable. So 3.4 or higher. Now I put one time, I'll show you some examples later. Like I think I was like a 3.39, So again, even that's a little debatable, even if you can round up. But just use your best judgment. And then in high school, a lot of times people, I'm sorry, I'm going to be blunt with y'all. Nobody cares about high school. Nobody cares. Okay? We don't care about how many yards you threw, how many volleyballs you hit. Okay? So now, if it's outstanding down here at the bottom, maybe. But just be really careful. Not too many people, even if they were to see something from high school, they're just going to glaze over it. Okay? Job experience, that makes sense. That's what everybody looks for. Volunteer experience. That's a great category. You talking about going to mission trips, talking about going to food pantries or animal shelters. That is very telling. You want to show somebody your character? Put in your volunteer experience. That's great. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because y'all are taking y'all's time out of the day without getting paid to do something nice. So if y'all can dig up some volunteer experience, put it on there. And then other categories, if y'all want to fill in some space. Skills, honors, activities / projects. Okay? Now, in the parentheses, we talked about if it's outstanding, it's subjective. So if you're having a little bit of trouble figuring out whether or not if it's outstanding, then come talk to me or Professor Holt, and we can try and figure that sort of thing out. But let's give you an example. I wouldn't put something like, I was the president of a club in high school. That's cool. So are a lot of other people. So there's an example of it not necessarily outstanding. Use reverse chronological order at the top, that sticky note. So most recent, least recent. Makes sense. Look at that. Again, what was that, third time? 1 page, please. 1 page. Okay. Here's a good example. This is a solid resume. Guess where it comes from? Your book. You can find it on the book, in the book. A solid resume. Look how you can design this in Word pretty simply, right? So there's also some resources in Blackboard, if I'm not mistaken, that Professor Holt's going to upload, and she's going to talk about in her lecture tomorrow. But you can find this in the book, and then we're going to get into some examples, more examples. Everybody got pictures and stuff? Yeah, okay. All right, I thought this would be interesting. I'm going to include my resume evolution, and this is where we're going to get into a little bit of discussion, because I am absolutely powering through this stuff. And that's okay, because I want to give y'all as much class time as possible to work on y'all's assignments. So this is the resume that I made for this class. Got an A on it. Pretty sure I designed it in Google Docs, not even Word, and I just exported it into Word. Look, it's just 2 columns. And then you fill out the information, right? Short, sweet, simple. This will get you an A. Decent use of white space, and then, to add some stuff and offset the white space down there, I included the LinkedIn profile, but obviously it's not really going to work if they're looking at it on paper, right? But for this class, I'll understand if y'all want to do something like that to fill in some space. But let's look at here. So, see at the top, what is that, left? My name is in blue. That's actually a dangerous decision. I guarantee you, if I were to send this to 1,000 employers, somebody may just not like blue and immediately see my name, toss it out. Just be mindful of that sort of thing, right? So we can be creative, but not everybody's going to like it. And even this isn't that creative. It's just highlighting my name in blue, right? So let's see. Use your, bolding. Use the italics. Strong word usage, right? That's what we're going to look for also. Revised, added, organized, inserted, stocked, answered, delivered, maintained. Get some strong words like that. Put that on your resume. So, I'm going to open up a little bit to discussion, really simple stuff. What I'm going to do, so it's not silent, because nobody likes awkward silences, is I'm going to call on somebody. Oh my gosh, I can hear y'all's hearts skip a beat. It's going to be okay. It's really simple stuff, right? So, let's see. Who am I going to choose on first? Bella. Hi. So I just would like for you to tell me if you like this style, if you don't like this style, if you would change anything about it. What do you think?
I do like the style. I like how simplistic it is and it's easy to read. I feel like it would be easy for an employer to kind of scan it and see the different categories of what they're looking for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. So also what I want y'all to see is, the different categories. So achievements, skills, and projects. The skills, we'll get to in a minute. But you don't always have to put that sort of stuff. A lot of times a little cheesy. For instance, visualizing and presenting. A lot of that stuff, a lot of that is expected of you. So why would you put it on there, even if you are really, really good at it, right? So let's go to the next one. Oh, what happened? Design shift. Instead of 2 columns, it's just top down. I changed the font. You see how much that changes? I changed the fonts. I changed the bolding. So, it's not that we have free reign, but we have room to explore. And that's good. Because if you have room to explore, you can find out what you like, and therefore, once you find out what you like, you can convey who you are. That's what we want to see. We want your employers to be able to infer your character, okay? So, simple stuff. I changed the fonts. Maybe not as what would you call that? Crazy. Just simpler, right? And straightforward. So, there's something else I want to go with this. Oh, the names are still blue. And then I think, the blacklisted stuff up there, it's just, that's my address, so I blacklisted it. But I think that was also in blue, if I remember right. But again, be careful with that. And what's up?
Would you want an objective in our resumes?
What's that?
An objective?
Oh, do you have an example of?
Yes, you know how we we wrote the email last night?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, in some of my previous resumes I've had an objective of why I'm sending in the resume.
Right. So I know where you're coming from. I've seen resumes with that before, and I've heard that before. For this, I think you may want to just do that in the cover letter.
Okay.
Now, since I'm grading, if y'all want to fill in space, go for it. Because when I was doing this class, I had trouble with spacing, if I remember. So an objective. Just make it professional, which is needless to say, but also what's the word I'm looking for? Professional and concise.
Okay.
You probably don't want more than 2 sentences on a resume. Yeah, good. Any other questions? Don't be afraid to stop me. I like to hear the sound of my own voice, apparently. Okay, let's keep going. Whoa, what happened again? Design shift. Now, it's worthy to note, I'm not looking for something like this. I designed this in Adobe Illustrator, all right? So I think we ought to stick to Word doc. What I'm trying to do is give y'all an idea of what you do and don't like, so y'all can figure out what you want to make your resume look like. So there's more font changes, and if my name up there, that's the only font on the entire thing. I did that on purpose. It's in large lettering. It's in the only specific font, and bolded for a reason, right? We want people to remember our name. So you can think about that sort of thing too. I would limit myself. For this, I limited myself, I think, to 3 fonts. And even that's a lot, right? Even that's a lot. So 1 to 2 fonts, and then I think even in your requirements that it may say just stick to Times New Roman. So we'll double check that sort of thing. So there was another thing I wanted to go over. Right. So there's a reason why I didn't put my name at the top left. Can anyone guess?
Search for it.
Yeah. That's a good one. Sure. Yeah. Any others? So it's going to sound a little pretentious, but I wanted them to see my achievements first. We read from left to right. We have 6 seconds to garner the attention we need to garner to where we want the attention. So I'll give an example. We read from left to right, right? 6 seconds. You see the achievements. Then you might be able to see how long the column is. I guarantee you if I took out the description, it's not that long, right? I made it look long on purpose. So you see the achievements, you see how long the column is. Then hopefully you see my education, see my GPA. And then guess what we can do? We can infer. Okay, so this guy can do extracurricular activities and also maintain a collegiate career, right? That's what we want them to do within 6 seconds. Let's see, what else? I got some references in there. Professional qualities. All right, before we get in, I'd like a little bit of discussion. Let's see. Paxton, what do you think? You like this sort of style? Is it?
I definitely do.
Yeah?
I've never seen a resume with the name on the right. I like the idea of the achievements being the first thing that they see, and especially with a lot of achievements, it helps grab their attention.
Sure.
The logo of the university you went to also grabs the attention.
Good.
Especially if you went to a prestigious college. I think it makes an employer want to hire you.
Good stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that logo. So I designed this. I formatted it from one of my friends who's a graphic designer. He's got 20 more years experience than I do. So I asked him if I could format it similar to his. So he had logos up there which I had never seen before. That's cool, right? Now I showed him that I was using a Texas Tech logo. Problem is it's in red, right? I say problem. So he said, oh man, don't do that. Don't do that. People like black and white. But I decided otherwise because I like the Texas Tech logo and people can see a little bit of color immediately. But I guarantee you, even if they went to Texas Tech, if they just don't like it, they're going to toss it in the trash. All right? So just keep it in mind. That's all I want y'all to do. If y'all want to be a little bit creative, know that not everybody may like it. All right? So let's see. Professional qualities. I wanted to talk about that. We'll get into it a little bit more later, but I want to kind of preface it. So a lot of those I consider pretty cheesy. I don't know why I kept them on there that long. Look at this. Communication, interpersonal, writing, and public speaking. Anyone raise your hands if you know the difference between hard and soft skills? No? Have y'all ever heard the term hard and soft skills before? Yeah? Okay. Good. So there's a good way of differentiating between the two that I use. If you want to know a soft skill, if you can associate it with nearly everybody, ever, if it's expected of you, it's most likely a soft skill. So, communication skills. Come on. When we get into the industry, we're all supposed to know how to talk to our clients, how to talk to our teammates, how to talk to our bosses, right? Interpersonal stuff, that's similar. Say, for instance, interpersonal is one-on-one. That's my research focus, one-on-one. But that's kind of hard to explain over a resume. People are just going to associate that with communication, right? Say, for instance, you're going into sales. Are you going to be expected to know how to sell things one-on-one? Sure. Graphic design, that's a hard skill. Not everybody does graphic design. Writing abilities, that's why we're all here, but even then, it's most likely still going to be expected of you to know how to write decently. And public speaking, even if it's one of the top fears, ladies and gentlemen, it's like the third fear away from the fear of death itself. That's crazy. It's still most likely going to be expected of you in y'all's industry to come up in front of a crowd of people and be able to present whatever you're doing, right? Okay, there's one last thing I want to show y'all. Yeah, y'all can see my cursor. So in this area, can anyone see what I've done wrong? Or is the font too small? I can't. Any takers? Any guesses? What's up?
Presentation of the novel's titles, as well
Yeah.
as just the way it looks is not
Sure.
consistent.
Not consistent. I like it. There's also there's a blatant. Look at this. I misspelled communication. I had this resume up on my website for like a year. I misspelled communication. I'm sure I read over the resume 1,000 times over. I am in the industry. I am in public relations, communication studies, interpersonal communication, mass communication. Guess what an employer, if I were an employer and I saw something like this, he's in the communication industry and he can't even spell it. I'm not going to want to worry about that. I've got 1,000 other resumes to look at. Sure, it looks cool. Sure, it looks okay. Sure, it's a nice resume. But this guy can't even proofread? Now, not everyone's going to be that tough, right? But it's worthy to note some people might. I like that too. It's not consistent. So, here's a transition. Oh my gosh. What happened? So, I moved the references, got rid of the professional qualities, and added a new job. Technically, I took more away than I did add, and yet, still looks like a lot of information, right? So, let's see, Elias. So what do you think? You like this resume? You dislike it? Would you change anything?
It definitely feels more full, there's little to no empty space.
There we go.
That has been wasted. And I really like how the references are now underneath the achievements.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically the same column, the same information.
Yes.
The achievements are the same as who you managed to keep in contact with.
Sure.
So I really like it.
Good. I'm glad y'all are starting to figure out what you like and what you don't like, because you can model it to your new resume. Anyone else have any thoughts? No? All right. So, I think it was in the next one. Here's my current one. I changed it up again. Look at all that beautiful white space. Kind of hard to tell up there, but top left, bottom left, a bar at the bottom, and a small bar in the middle, and on the far right. So I added some white space. Now, our eyes have a chance to rest. And I got rid of, the professional qualities and things like that. And you may not even like the layout, right? But I just want y'all to get an idea so you can model your new resumes, okay? Use the white space, please. I'm going to be honest, this is too much, and it's mine. It's not going to hurt my feelings. It's too much. And I'll tell you why. So I got rid of the white space up at the top, at the bottom also, like Elias had talked about. There's just very, very little. There's a thin column where the achievements line is, right? And I guarantee you it would be better if there was a thin column in the middle, but guess what? The references cut it off. Your eyes would be able to go straight down unless the references were there. Okay, and this is just, aesthetics, right? And then what really does this resume in is that it pushes everything over. So if you'll notice over where it says teacher's aide and student assistant, there's not a column of white space. So it seems like everything is getting pushed, right? So just keep that in mind, especially when if y'all are doing like columns and stuff like that. You don't have to necessarily make the white spaces even or the columns even. I just like aesthetics. But remember that sort of thing, okay? Any questions before we go on? All right. I think we're making pretty dang good time. Resume tips. Bullet points are your friend. Okay, this isn't an essay. If it's more than one sentence, just be very careful. Okay, be very, very careful. 6 seconds to gain attention. If y'all ever bored, look up on Google the heat map of eye tracking of employers looking at resumes. Excuse me, and you'll see what they do. It's really interesting. It's almost like a zigzag. So they start at the top left, then they go to the right, and then they just brush over the middle. And then they kind of read the bottom. All right? So that's the importance of stressing the points and getting the attention that you want to the right places. Okay? 6 seconds. It's not a long time. Proofread. Oh my gosh. I don't think I have to tell you all this. I had my resume up for a year before I realized I misspelled communication. So yes, I proofread it, but you also need to get some other eyes on that sort of thing, okay? If you need to fill in space, use marketable skills. That's like the professional qualities. Hard skills are preferable to soft skills. I don't know why I didn't include 3 examples. I just included 2, which is interesting. But all you have to do is go to Google, type in marketable skills, examples, and then just cherry pick what you like. All right? Now I wouldn't consider stretching the truth, especially when it comes to hard skills, because there's a reason not everybody can do them. So when you're looking at all those examples, just make sure it does apply to you, okay? That's things like graphic design, other languages, and then I associate with stuff like math and statistics, SPSS, stuff like that. Soft skills, communication, problem solving. I've seen that one a lot. It sounds good. It even looks good on paper, right? But I have to tell y'all, everybody does it every single day of their lives. Okay, we're probably doing it right now. So we use it. And then that's another reiteration, use reverse chronological order. Any questions before we continue? Because we are going on into the cover letter elements. No? Good, I'm going to get a breath here. So, a lot of this stuff is straightforward. A lot of this stuff you can see online, right? Your address and contact info. Makes sense, doesn't it? The date, it's like writing an actual letter just online, okay? Now, I included the company headquarters address because that's what I do. For instance, if I'm submitting to an agent and traditionally publishing, I'll put their headquarters address on there. It just looks good. I just like it. But if you're tight on space, you don't have to. But definitely, include who they are, obviously. You're right. That's another point. So you are going to want to try and make it a little bit more personal instead of to whom it may concern. For a cover letter, you're going to want to find probably either somebody in charge or the person who actually looks at resumes. Okay, you're going to want to make it personal. Otherwise, it's like, why are you even doing this? And then Professor Holt is going to talk about this, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. But it's just pretty basic. Tell the recipient why you're writing. Make it straightforward. Please consider this my application for ... That's a great first line because it tells you exactly why you're writing. Part 2, explain why you want to work for this particular organization. Makes sense. What draws you to these guys? Why do you like them in the first place? Part 3, describe your specific accomplishments. Now the trick with this too isn't just putting some cool accomplishments. It's connecting it to the company you'd like to work for. Makes sense, right? You want them to see that you're a team player. You want them to see that you have potential. So pick an accomplishment or a skill that directly connects with the company. And then part 4, show initiative. At the very end, I like to say something along the lines of, I really appreciate the opportunity to prove to you that I can help you achieve your goals, you and your company's goals. That's fantastic. Not everybody says that sort of thing. Show initiative. Show you want to work for them. Now, the kicker, 2 to 3 sentences. That's amazing to me. Typically, I would say 3 to 4 sentences. That's typically what I do, right? But then Professor Holt's going to talk about 2 to 3 sentences. I don't know if y'all have ever seen her email, her titles, or just read about her. She knows what she's doing. She's a professor of practice, all right? So I was surprised even when I saw 2 to 3 sentences. But it makes sense, especially because in those 2 to 3 sentences, you're going to have to convey exactly what you need to convey without rambling, right? And then be formal. Makes sense. But we also talk about writing narratively about yourself. So that goes back to the balance, finding that balance. Formality, professionalism, casualness, and narrative. Okay? Any questions before we go on? Good stuff. Here's an example. This is also in your book, page 316. Okay? This is a solid one. I guarantee you, if Professor Holt brings it up, she's going to mention how large the paragraphs are. So I wouldn't even do that. That looks like 4 to 5, perhaps. It could just be the spacing, but be careful with the spacing also. Even if it's 2 to 3 sentences, or maybe even 4, it could look like 6. And maybe you don't want to do that. A lot of times people don't want to read, right? It's hard work reading, especially when you think about these people who are reading hundreds and hundreds of a day, cover letters and resumes. Sure, so put yourself in these guys' shoes. Make it short, sweet, simple. And then at the very bottom, look at that, Taylor Jackson. They have it stylized. That's a good idea. It's a great idea. You want to stand out? Stylize your signature. And then at the bottom, I would also put, it in normal font. Okay, tips. Look, we talk about the balance on that sticky note. There's a reason why I'm harping on some of these things. Because some of us either go way too narrative, like me. I do that sort of thing. I do that in my PhD applications. And some of these guys, these are by the book. Okay, they don't want to hear about me as much. They want to hear about what I've done, right? So find the balance. Elaborate on key points from your resume. So get points from your resume that connects directly to the company. So I'll give you an example. I used to work at a law firm, right? If I'm trying to get hired at another law firm, you think those guys are going to want to know about it? Absolutely. So you can also state stuff like, because I worked at this law firm, I learned the skills necessary to ... I learned the skills necessary to input whatever connects to the company there, right? That's a good sentence. Because I worked here, I learned how to do this. That's solid, especially if it's a skill that these company guys like. Do it. Research helps with this. I get it. Not everybody likes to do research. It takes too much time. I get it. But it helps. At the very least, go to the websites of these guys. Go look at their mission statements. Look at their cultures. Look at the colors they use on the websites. Get an idea of who these people are. And try to connect yourself with them, but not losing yourself, right? Proofread. My goodness. What? 4th or 5th time I said that? Proofread. And again, that's the beauty in peer reviews. Because even if you do proofread it, I guarantee you there's still going to be one tiny little mistake. Any questions? All right, we're powering along. Yeah, good stuff. Peer reviews. We're almost done. We're going to have a great amount of time to work on our stuff. Okay, so peer reviews, this is really important. I want y'all to remember this. Be specific and elaborate on mistakes. This is one of those times, surprisingly, I'm not going to tell you to be short, sweet, and simple. That is my favorite phrase, short, sweet, and simple. But this is not one of those times. If you want to get good reviews, please give good reviews, okay? And at the same time, you also have to be careful over text. I'll give you an example. Maybe I'm hangry and I'm reading my criticism. I'm not going to like you very much. Now it's silly. It's a silly example. None of us are in this class to hurt each other. It's all constructive criticism, right? But at the same time, I wouldn't use something like all caps. I wouldn't use exclamation points. Okay? So this is what I started doing a couple years back. At the very top, I start with a compliment. Who doesn't like to hear a compliment about their work? Hey, this is solid work. Hey, I like your writing style. Thank you. I appreciate that, right? Then you get into the meat of the constructive criticism. Constructive, it's a key point, key word. And end with a compliment. So let's use that same example. I'm hangry, and I'm looking at my criticism. First, it starts off with a compliment. Oh, it's not that bad. Thank you. I appreciate that. Then I go through the criticism. Okay, there's some stuff I could fix. And then I get to the bottom, and it's another compliment. Oh, that's not that bad. Okay, I can fix it up, right? Okay, good stuff. So, I don't want to see stuff like this. Good job or no mistakes found. We need a little bit more than that. Okay? And it's highly unlikely any one of us, including myself, is going to have no mistakes found. Out of the hundreds of thousands of words I've written, I've made tens of thousands of mistakes. Okay? Tens of thousands. So even simple stuff like our assignments, we're going to have them.